In 1920, there is one thing every person on Earth needs every single day. Not electricity, most don't have it. A match. A stick of wood tipped with phosphorus. Strike it. You cook, you see. You survive. Hundreds of factories make them. Margins are razor thin. Nobody thinks about who owns the fire. Then a construction engineer from Stockholm figures out something no banker ever has. Loan a government enough money, and they'll hand you their entire match supply. His name is Ivar Kreuger. Within a decade, he will loan $400 million to 15 countries, control 75% of the world's matches, with money that doesn't exist. The match industry in 1900 is a graveyard of small ambitions. Hundreds of family-owned factories across Europe churn out matches by the millions. They compete on fractions of a penny. Margins are brutal. Nobody gets rich. Nobody sees the point of thinking bigger. In the coastal city of Kalmar, Sweden, one of these factories belongs to the Kreuger family. Their son, Ivar, grows up inside the smell of phosphorus and sulfur. He watches his father grind out a living selling a product the world cannot function without, and yet can barely afford to manufacture. He leaves Sweden at 20, spends 8 years building bridges across 3 continents, and learning, in the mud and rebar, how structures bear weight and how they collapse. Then he comes home. Stockholm, 1908. Kreuger is 28. He looks at the match industry his father nearly broke himself inside, and he does not see a product. He sees a utility. Electricity is coming, yes, but for the wealthy. For everyone else, for the next 20, 30 years at minimum, fire will come from a match. Universal demand, daily consumption, no substitute. He does not build a better match. He does not innovate the product. He does not care about the product. He buys competitors, one after another. Small Swedish factories, absorbed into a single entity, Swedish Match. Merges, consolidates, squeezes, until the domestic market belongs to him. Whoever controls the thing every person uses without thinking, he tells an early partner, controls everything. But Sweden is a small country, and Kreuger does not want to own Sweden's matches. He wants to own the world's. That requires money he doesn't have. So he invents a way to get it, one that will fool 15 governments and 100 million investors. Before we get into how Kreuger convinced entire governments to hand over their match supply, if this story has you leaning in, subscribe and hit the bell. What happens next turns a match company into a global bank. Now, back to Stockholm. Europe after the First World War is a continent of open wounds. Governments are broke. Infrastructure is rubble. Entire economies run on debt that no traditional bank will touch. The victors demand reparations. The defeated can barely feed their people. And every finance minister in every capital shares the same private terror. Where does the money come from? Ivar Kreuger walks into this vacuum with the simplest offer in the history of finance. I will loan you the money. No conditions on how you spend it. No sovereignty strings. No political demands. In return, I want one thing: the exclusive right to manufacture and sell every match inside your borders. To a desperate government, this is not a sacrifice. Matches are beneath the dignity of finance ministers. They are a commodity so cheap, so invisible, that handing over the monopoly feels like paying with pocket lint. France is the first major test. Kreuger writes them a check for $75 million, equivalent to more than $1 billion today. In return, he receives complete control of the French match supply. Every box, every stick, every spark. The deal works. Every government has the same weakness, Kreuger tells an associate. They need money, and they hate being told how to spend it. I simply don't tell them. Poland signs next, then Germany, Yugoslavia, Turkey, Greece, Romania, Peru, Ecuador, Latvia, Hungary, Estonia, Guatemala, Bolivia, Lithuania, the free city of Danzig. 15 nations hand their match supply to a single man from Stockholm. And now the question no one asks loudly enough. Where is the money coming from? The answer is an ocean away, Wall Street. Kreuger lists his holding company, Kreuger & Toll, on the New York Stock Exchange. American investors pour in. The pitch is elegant. Guaranteed returns backed by government monopoly contracts. What could be safer than a product every human on Earth needs? protected by sovereign law. School teachers buy Kreuger and Toll. Widows buy it. Retirees roll their life savings into a stock that pays consistent dividends year after year, like clockwork. By the late 1920s, Kreuger and Toll is one of the most widely held securities in America. It sits alongside U.S. Steel and General Electric in the portfolios of ordinary people who believe they are making the safest investment of their lives. Here is what none of them know. The dividends they receive do not come from match profits. Match margins are thin. They have always been thin. The dividends come from new investor money. Fresh capital flows in, gets routed through a maze of international subsidiaries, and emerges as profit paid to existing shareholders, who then tell their friends, who invest, who receive dividends from the next wave of investors. It is a perfect circle, and it is a lie. Ivar Kreuger is running the largest Ponzi scheme in the history of the world, decades before the word enters common language. He is lending governments money that belongs to American school teachers, paying those school teachers with money from American widows, and covering the difference with the next round of believers. 15 countries, $400 million, and a system so complex that understanding it requires one thing no one possesses: access to the books. Books that only one man has ever seen. And when those books finally open, they will find his handwriting where government seals should be. Try to follow the money. You won't make it far. Kreuger and Toll owns Swedish Match. Swedish Match owns Continental Investment Corporation. Continental owns a holding company in the Netherlands. The Dutch entity owns shares in a Liechtenstein trust. The trust holds bonds issued by a Swiss subsidiary. The Swiss subsidiary's primary asset is a stake in Kreuger and Toll. The circle closes. The trail vanishes. And this is just one thread in a web of more than 400 companies spread across 40 countries on 5 continents. No external auditor has ever examined these books, not because anyone has been refused, though they have, but because no one pushes hard enough. In 1925, a junior accountant at Lee Higginson in Boston, Kreuger's primary American bank, notices something. The numbers from Kreuger and Toll don't reconcile. Dividends paid to investors exceed the reported revenue from match operations, not by a small margin, by a chasm. He flags it to his supervisor, suggests, quietly, that perhaps the firm should request an independent audit. His supervisor doesn't even look up. Audit Kreuger? You'd have better luck auditing the sun for shining too bright. The junior accountant drops it. He never raises it again. And that is how it works, not through threats or intimidation, through reputation, through an aura so carefully constructed that questioning it feels not just rude, but absurd. Kreuger's credibility is the load-bearing wall of the entire structure, and nobody wants to be the fool who taps on it. He holds no real board meetings. There are no detailed written financials shared with investors or lenders. The critical numbers, the true liabilities, the real asset values, the actual flow of cash, exist in one place only: inside his head. When partners or bankers ask for figures, Kreuger produces them from memory, specific, confident, delivered with the calm authority of a man who has nothing to hide. He dines with heads of state. He attends the opera alone, immaculate in a dark suit, speaking softly, revealing nothing. He is invited to the White House. European royalty courts his counsel. His personal fortune, by the estimates of the time, exceeds what today would be $30 billion. He is lending more money to sovereign nations than the Bank of England. Kreuger's silence was his most powerful instrument. One financial historian will later write, "You trusted him because he never needed you to." The system is not merely fraudulent. It is architecturally designed to be unknowable. Every question leads to another company, another jurisdiction, another layer of paper. The maze does not protect a secret. The maze is the secret. There is nothing at the center, no hidden vault, no real fortune, no legitimate books. They simply do not exist. October 1929, Wall Street crashes. The machine has 30 months of fuel left. Then it will eat itself alive. The money stops, not slowly, not gradually. The crash of 1929 does not tap the brakes. It cuts the fuel line. Investor confidence shatters overnight. New money stops flowing into Kreuger and Toll. And without new money, the circle breaks. Old dividends come due. Government loans need servicing. 400 companies across 40 countries need cash. And the only source, fresh believers, has dried up. Kreuger scrambles. He shifts funds between subsidiaries, borrowing from one shell to prop up another. He covers a payment in Poland with money from a holding company in Switzerland. He delays a loan installment in Germany by liquidating an asset in South America. He is juggling with increasing speed and decreasing margin, and every solution creates two new problems. Then he does something that will define his legacy more than any deal, any monopoly, any government loan. Alone, in a hotel room, with a pen and blank paper, Ivar Kreuger forges Italian government bonds, $142 million worth. He copies the official seals. He replicates the signatures. He mimics the formatting of sovereign financial instruments by hand. Sit with this for a moment. This is not a team of counterfeiters with printing presses and chemical expertise. This is one man, in a room, writing on paper. The most powerful private financier in the world, crouched over a desk with ink and steady hands, fabricating government documents like a back alley forger. And it works. Not because the forgeries are good, they are not. They would not survive 5 minutes of professional scrutiny. The paper is wrong. The ink doesn't match. The signatures, under any real examination, are clearly one man's hand attempting to be many. But nobody examines them. Nobody has examined anything Ivar Kreuger has produced in more than a decade. The forgeries go into files. The files go into drawers. And the machine lurches forward one more quarter. 1930, then 1931. The walls close in from every direction. Bankers in New York demand financial statements. Swedish partners ask uncomfortable questions. Kreuger stalls. He redirects. He leans on the only asset he has left, personal charisma. Private dinners, direct eye contact. A calm voice saying, "Everything is fine. The numbers will come. Trust me." He has been saying "trust me" for 15 years, and it has worked every time. But time has a weight that charisma cannot carry, and by early 1932, the weight is unbearable. He carried the weight of a collapsing empire, a contemporary observer will note, with the posture of a man with nothing to hide. The final call comes in March. Auditors will examine the books. Not next month, not next quarter, tomorrow. No more extensions, no more private assurances. March 12, 1932, Paris. In 16 hours, auditors will open his books. Ivar Kreuger will not live to see it. The morning is quiet. Kreuger is in his apartment on Avenue Victor Emmanuel III. He eats breakfast. He writes a few letters. He does not appear panicked. He does not appear anything at all. At some point before noon, a gunshot. His housekeeper finds him on the bed. One bullet to the chest. A 9mm pistol at his side. No note, no farewell, no confession. The official ruling arrives swiftly. Suicide. But the details resist the conclusion. The gun rests in his left hand. Kreuger is right-handed. The angle of entry raises questions that are never formally answered. And no one secures the crime scene for hours. The first people through the door are not police. They are bankers, representatives of the very institutions that will collapse if the truth of Kreuger's empire becomes public. They enter the apartment. They spend time inside. What they touch, what they read, what they remove, if anything, is never documented. Within 48 hours, the world discovers what Ivar Kreuger has built. The forged bonds surface. The empty subsidiaries unravel. The phantom profits dissolve. Kreuger and Toll stock, once among the most trusted securities in America, crashes to zero. $300 million in investor wealth vanished. Adjusted for inflation, billions. In Chicago, a retired school teacher named Margaret Hoffman holds a Kreuger and Toll certificate. Yesterday, it was worth $12,000. Her entire life savings, 3 decades of careful, modest accumulation. Today, it is paper. She is 61 years old. She will not recover this money. Margaret Hoffman is one of millions. Retirement savings, college funds, widows' pensions, modest fortunes built over lifetimes, placed in the safest stock their brokers could recommend. Gone in a week. The outrage is immense. Congressional hearings follow. The American public demands an answer to a question so simple, it is almost embarrassing. How did nobody check? How did no regulator, no auditor, no bank, no government, no journalist look at the books of the most powerful private financier in the world? For over a decade, the answer reshapes modern finance. 1933, the United States passes the Securities Act, the first federal law requiring companies to disclose financial information to investors. The following year, Congress creates the Securities and Exchange Commission, the SEC. Mandatory audits, disclosure requirements, regulated markets, the fundamental architecture protecting every person who buys a stock today. It exists because a match salesman from Sweden built an empire out of air and found a world too polite, too trusting, or too lazy to ask a single hard question. And the question that never gets answered, the one that sits beneath all the regulation and reform like a crack in a foundation. Did Ivar Kreuger pull that trigger? Or did someone pull it for him? In death, one historian observes, Kreuger protected every powerful person who had ever trusted him. Whether he chose to, that is the question. His body returns to Sweden. It is cremated before an independent examination can be conducted. The evidence burns, the questions remain. Governments that owe him money never repay it. Bankers whose negligence enabled the fraud face no prosecution. The only person who could have testified against any of them lies silent in a Paris apartment on a March morning, a gun in the wrong hand. A match is a simple thing, a stick of wood, a head of phosphorus. You strike it, it burns. It lights up everything around it. Then it goes out. That question, suicide or silence, has never been resolved. If you think you know the answer, drop it in the comments. And if this story changed the way you think about trust and money, subscribe. The next one goes deeper.